Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I am Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to give you my review of Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 8, Terra Firma, Part 2. So, it's a continuation of last week. It takes place mostly in the Mirror Universe, picking up where last week left off, with Georgiou still trying to fend off, a coup. And specifically in this episode, trying to reform Michael and bring her back to the fold, while on Discovery back in the regular universe, they're still trying to figure out that whole burn thing. That's pretty much the synopsis. They did a silly thing, by the way, with the opening sequence, you may have noticed, for these last two episodes. They turned the normal sequence like into a photo negative, or shaded it blue anyway, so that it looks like a photo negative, and then they flipped it upside down to sort of indicate the Mirror Universe. And it's similar to what they did when they went to the Mirror Universe on Enterprise. That's just a small little thing. Anyway, the episode starts off right where last week left off, where they're escorting Michael supposedly to the agonizer booth. But for some reason, they just throw her in like a cell that seems to have like a one-way force field on it, where people can... In fact, I don't know, it seemed like a two-way force. I'm not even sure where that force field was there, because Georgiou walks in and walks out through it. So why would they bother putting Michael behind it? And why did they put her in there at all? Because they have this scene for like a minute where she talks to Georgiou, and then they pick her up again and put her in the agonizer booth. So why didn't they put her in the agonizer booth to begin with? I suspect because they didn't want to have the scene, the conversation through glass of the agonizer booth, or they didn't want to shoot it around the booth. I don't know, it just stood out as dumb. Like, take her to the agonizer booth, but first throw her in a cell so I can talk to her for a minute, and then pick her up again and put her in the agonizer booth. Like, what? I didn't get that. Anyway, right away I noticed that Michelle Yeoh, and I probably should have known this before, but I really haven't started paying attention to, how bad her accent is until lately. I mean, it was always there, but like, it's really started to annoy me lately. But seeing her again as the Emperor and playing that part fully, rather than playing the subdued Emperor that she's been playing on Discovery in the Prime Universe, where she can't really be her Emperor self fully. She was just this quippy, complainy, sort of Oscar the Grouch type character, just going around raining on everyone's parade and being quippy. But the quips came out so bad because her accent doesn't allow her to speak with the proper speech pattern in English that one needs to be able to speak in order to deliver a quippy quip, to have punch. But as the full-blown Emperor, where her lines are different because she's not quipping at people. She's having, conversations where she talks in long, like sentences, and gets, bigger thoughts out than one can get out with a quip. And she's very good at that. She does play Emperor Georgiou very well. What she didn't play very well was, the Emperor Chained, as it were, where she's just this angry person walking around with no real power, just barking at people. She didn't really play that very well. She played it well. Her delivery was terrible because she's not equipped for those types of lines. But when she's playing the full-blown Emperor, she really shines, and she's really good in the part. And I guess I hadn't noticed that before, so that when I started noticing how bad she was with the quips, I started to just be kind of down on her as the actress for the part. But that may not have been, a correct way to think about it. Overall, she's really good in the part. I had a problem with her as the quippy version of Georgiou. Anyway, so she's confronting Michael, and then they end up putting Michael in the agonizer booth, and the Emperor tells, Tilly, Captain Killy, that she's like the toughest interrogator in the Empire. I didn't really see that. She just pushed a button and asked her like the most basic questions. who are your co-conspirators? Brr, you know, like what? That's not, anybody can do that. A robot can do that. A hologram can do that. So I didn't really get that. But Tilly did continue to look hot, which is awesome. At one point, after Michael pretends to come back to the fold, the Emperor tells her, or somebody tells her, even, you know, they say to her, you're the best of us. You know, so even in, or was it when she was discovered, they say, you were the best of us. I don't know. But they say she's the best of them. And I was like, even in the mirror universe, she's the bestest. You know, the bestest. So, no change there. I do think they had a couple of good scenes in this episode. And the first one was when Georgiou goes to her to bring her the sort of jar of fireflies. And she's talking about when Michael was a child, while Michael is sort of passed out after she's been tortured a bunch. And she's talking about how, you know, she ran away that one time and she was enamored with the fireflies. And then after the first time, after, you know, Georgiou caught up to her, they decided to do this thing regularly where they would walk together. And it struck me as an interesting thing because it's a callback to when she had that one moment where she ran away from Sarek's house in the Prime Universe. You know, to protect Spock from the Vulcan extremists, or to protect the family from the Vulcan extremists, or whatever it was. Or, you know, and then Spock was the one that ended up following her, I guess. Or was it Amanda? I don't remember. But so I wrote down, you know, it reminded me of that. So I wrote down she ran away in both universes. I'm hoping that was a deliberate thing that the writers did, that they wanted us to notice. If so, that was pretty good. You know, a nice bit of crafty writing. If they did it by accident, shame on them. But anyway, the result is you get this picture of Michael as someone who behaved similarly in both universes. And I think that's sort of what you tend to see. It didn't really play out that way in the original series Mirror episode, because they were dealing with stark, like, archetypes, evil versus good. The characters weren't, you know, they weren't playing them as nuanced entities. But in a lot of multiverse stories, you see, you know, characters in two universes that have very close, you know, personalities to each other, very similar character traits, and just they sort of veer off, you know, at some point into a different direction, and they start to sort of, you know, separate in terms of how similar they are. They become more dissimilar than similar, but they sort of start out very close together. And I sort of like that concept, so I'm glad that they worked it in here, even if it was, you know, by accident. And I thought it was a good scene in terms of showing Georgiou's redemption. I love a good redemption story. You know, this has all been about her redemption. And I think they did a good job in that scene, sort of showing the effects of it. But I'm going to talk more about her redemption later. For now, I just want to say Detmer got killed. No! They killed Detmer in the Mirror Universe. Terrible. Then, you know, and that's why the writing in the show is uneven. Sometimes, this is an example of why I say that. There's another scene, the following scene now, I think, was, or a subsequent scene, is where you see Georgiou talking more with Saru. Because, you know, she tells him, you know, don't worry, you're not going to be culled. You'll survive it. Just lock yourself away. I know it's going to happen. And I thought that was fine. It goes to, you know, showing more about how she's sort of going through a redemption or a change. But then Saru just says, you know, the way you talk, you're not Terran, are you? You're from somewhere else. And it just, again, I've said this before, struck me as the kind of writing I used to do in my 20s. You know, when I was writing fanfic, or anything else I might have written. I wrote a lot of stories at the time. And my writing was sometimes very... when you don't know how to write well, you shortcut things. You just get the train to where it's going without showing the train on the way there. And that's kind of what this line was. Like, there's no, they didn't have a bunch of scenes where he started to suspect she wasn't from there. It just occurs to him all in this one moment. And if it occurred to him at all before that, you couldn't really tell. So in the end, it comes off like it just, in that one moment, he gets a light bulb and goes, "You are not from here, are you?" Which is the most bizarre conclusion to draw. You know, just from what? The basis being that Terrans are evil and she was coming off as not evil, therefore she can't be from there because there aren't 100 other things that would explain that. You know, why she might be behaving a little bit differently? It was just stupid for him to jump to that conclusion. Stupid. Then they say, they find this one co-conspirator, or they figure out where he is, and they're like, okay, go to maximum warp to get there, and it's instantaneous. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we've never seen a situation where there was instantaneous travel between any 2 points just by using warp drive. Like, it takes time. An hour, 2 hours, a day. So, you know, I just thought that was crazy. Why didn't they use the spore drive? I can't remember if Discovery has a spore drive or not in the mirror universe, but like, I don't know, stupid thing to notice maybe. It just bothered me. Then towards the end, when you find out that Michael has in fact not come back to the fold and she's still against the Emperor, there's a conflict, and the Emperor has some allies come in and sort of rescue her from her own imminent murder. And a couple of the people that are shooting on her side are Kelpians, Saru and I guess one other Kelpian on the ship. And I was like, she gave guns to Kelpians? Like, I know she's changed and everything, but didn't she think the first thing they were going to do was shoot everybody? Like, even her? I don't know. That just struck me as weird. And then I noticed that their version of Arium in the Mirror Universe looks exactly like a different crew member on Discovery that showed up after Arium died. That's weird. Then Michael dies. She has this gurgling, horrific death, and all I could think of was, well, a lot of people are very happy right now seeing her die, seeing that character die a gruesome death. And then, just as the Emperor's about to die, Saru tells her, "Oh, you know, the doctors are on their way. They're going to help you." And I'm thinking, why aren't they beaming in? But I don't know. The other thought I had was, are they really going to wrap this up in 3 more episodes, 11, 12, and 13? Because that's all they have left. It's not that it's overly complicated and they couldn't wrap it up in 3 episodes, but like, I don't know. It seems, I don't know. It doesn't seem to me like they're nearing any kind of a climax. So I have this feeling that whatever climax they come to is going to feel rushed, which, you know, wouldn't be the first time Discovery's done that. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Then, of course, we get to the part where she comes back from the Mirror Universe. And we find out, lo and behold, who Carl actually is. They did a great job with parts of this, I have to say. Like using the original audio when he says, you know, "I am the guardian of forever." What I didn't understand is why they bothered to put somewhere else other than the original planet. I guess he kind of explains that by saying, you know, people were using me to fight the temporal wars, so maybe that explains why he's somewhere else, or originally it wasn't it. It went somewhere else. What I don't understand is why they personified the Guardian of Forever. I guess because it was the only way they could get away with the door thing. And they wanted, you know, Giorgio and Michael to converse with it. And maybe they thought that the booming voice of the original Guardian would have been a little silly for them to have an actual conversation with. I don't know why. Kirk and Spock did. But it was sort of a limited conversation. So, I don't know. Maybe they thought it would be better if they worked a person into it, but they don't sort of explain why it's showing itself as a person and the arch at the same time. I don't know. I don't know if that's a big deal. It just bugs me. But anyway, the rest of it I thought was great. the whole Guardian Forever thing. Certainly it looked terrific. The explosion with the door and then it reforms into the Guardian was cool. I thought the special effect of the vortex inside was pretty cool. And I thought the rest of the scene after Carl leaves between Michael and Georgiou was actually very good. Sometimes they get it right. Sometimes they get things right on this show, and I've said this before. This scene I thought was very well done. I found it moving. I would be lying if I said I didn't find it moving. I thought it was done in a very TNG way, a very DS9 way. And I actually found myself approving of the crying and hugging that took place in this scene. The problem I had with it is, and I said I was going to get back to this, is that I didn't really fully believe Georgiou's redemption. I mean, I believe it because, you know, she's redeemed herself. You know, that's the fact of the matter. But, you know, it's not something that we really saw coming for a long time. You know, they've shown her on Discovery, you know, the time that she's been spending on Discovery, as, you know, bowed, as they say, a little bit broken, because she wasn't in control of anything. She wasn't the commanding presence that she had been in the mirror universe. So she found herself, you know, again, I want to use the word bowed, you know, brought to heel. And the angle is that through that experience and through, you know, actually having to work with other people, she has found a way to become, you know, she's rediscovered her humanity. And that's cool, but we didn't really see it happening. You know, there were little, like, blips. But then at the end, it was, you know, sort of, all of a sudden she's there. All of a sudden she's all the way there and fully redeemed. You know, redemption stories take time, and you have to do the groundwork. And you have to show the change as being incremental. And they didn't really do that, I don't think. You know, a better example of a redemption arc would be the character of Spike on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You know, the evil queen on Once Upon a Time. They did a much better job of it on those shows, and the way they did it on both of those shows, or part of the way that they did it on both those shows, is they showed what those characters were like before they became evil. They did it with Spike, and they did it with the evil queen. And when you have a gifted actor, as they did in the case of Lana Parrilla, who played, you know, the evil queen on Once Upon a Time, you actually can tell the difference between the persona or the character before they became evil and the character after they became evil, and the character in between as they're finding their way back. You can see it in their face. You can see it in their line delivery. And I think Michelle Yeoh probably could have done that work, but they didn't give it to her to do. They just showed her as being, you know, someone who would work with the good guys and come in for them in the clutch occasionally, but the rest of the time she was just grouchy. And they never really showed her growing. There was no growth. She just was this subdued emperor person the whole time. And then all of a sudden, you know, she goes back to the mirror universe and she's had all these revelations and she starts behaving differently. You know, more gratuitous, not gratuitous. She behaves with more milk of human kindness, as it were, all of a sudden. And I just don't think they did a great job of it. I think they have redeemed her, but she didn't earn it. So I'm a little disappointed in that. I don't know if I'm going to watch the Section 31 show, which of course is next for the character. I'm not really interested in it. I'm at least interested in Discovery as much as I dislike it, because it's a starship show and they're going out and explore. Well, they're not really exploring, but they're going out and doing things, you know, closer to what they did on other shows than what I imagine this Section 31 show is going to be. And I don't really like the concept of Section 31 to begin with, so that might be the first Star Trek thing that I actually don't watch. The first Star Trek, production that I don't ever watch. We'll have to see. I might check it out. But I'm not looking forward to it. So, I don't know. Then we do get a little bit more of a brief time on Discovery back in the Prime Universe after Georgiou goes through the Guardian. And Saru is talking to the Admiral, and the Admiral's kind of giving him a hard time about using the Emerald Chain's technology to, communicate with the ship that's stuck in the nebula. And he says, you might be used to operating under lax standards on Discovery. And I was like, yeah, they are. So this cracked me up because, again, it's self-referential. The writers know, obviously, that they're writing the crew of Discovery and the goings-on Discovery in such a way that those characters come off as lax Starfleet officers. They obviously know they're doing it because they just referenced it in their own narrative. So it's like, why are you doing this? In other words, it's not like you don't know you're doing it. So stop it. You know you're doing it. Why are you doing it? Stop doing it. We don't like it. It's not how Starfleet officers should behave. I really keep hoping they're going to change this. Maybe the Admiral's going to get on their case more. And they'll stop doing it. One can hope, but, only time will tell. So, Michael then is having a conversation with Saru after this conversation between Saru and the Admiral. I guess to debrief him on what happened on the planet. And she doesn't tell him that Philippa went through the Guardian forever. I'm not really sure why. I don't know if Saru needed to know, but you'd think she would tell him. What's the reason not to tell him? I don't know. I didn't like that. But anyway, she doesn't tell him. And he says something like, well, I will feel her absence. Why? Did you mean to say celebrate her absence? She was a bitch. Like, what? There was nothing likable about her. In terms of how she interacted with everyone. So why would you feel her absence? And then it gets worse than that. They have like a memorial service for her, and they toast her. And they say glowing things about her, and I don't get it. If she had actually redeemed herself in their presence, if the change had actually taken place in the big way that they ended up doing it, but over the course of time in front of the crew, I would understand this. I would understand how they were saying, when we first encountered her, she was evil, but she changed her ways and she became a better person and she really contributed, and we developed relationships with her and we came to like her, and we're sad that she's gone. I would understand it, but that never happened. She was just a bitch the whole time. So I didn't get that. I thought it was nuts. Just nuts. And that's really it. That's the whole episode. Now we have next week, and we'll see where that goes. They have 3 episodes to wrap it up. Like I said, one good thing I want to say about this episode too is they didn't have 16 bajillion plots in these last 2 episodes. They had 2, and the second one was like barely there. It was like just under the surface. And that's how it should be. There shouldn't be 15 plots in every episode. 1 big plot for sure. A second plot, okay, good, we want a B story. But none of this other crap. Like, I was just so glad they didn't spend any time in these last 2 episodes on the Booker, plot, on the Adira plot, and all that stuff. Just keep it, smaller, guys. And it's unfortunate, too, that they had to spend these whole 2 episodes on a plot just to set up the next series. I don't know. They could have done that much more quickly. They could have just done that with much more quickly. They didn't have to go through this whole mirror universe thing. I don't know. I don't know. I just it's sort of, to me, this is a 13 episode season. It's going to be more like 11, really, because they spent these were like setup episodes for the Section 31 show. It was like a pilot for the Section 31 show, really. And I don't think that was fair to the people who work on Discovery, and the people who really like Discovery. And there are those people. I didn't think it was fair to them. But anyway, that's it. I'm going to do a review either tomorrow or the next day of the next episode of The Mandalorian. And then, after that, I'll be back when the next episode of Star Trek comes out, and the following episode of Mandalorian, and possibly in between if there's any, entertainment news worth talking about. Until then, I once again wish you peace and long life.